Hey everyone, today we'll explore grid together. The grid layout in Yeeflow brings CSS grid to life on a completely visual canvas. This gives you more direct control over your layout and design. A grid is a container used to visually group a set of related contents on your forms and pages. To begin with, let's find the grid in the Controls panel and drag it to the Design panel. To add columns and rows, go to the Appearance section, click the plus Add button that appear on the top right of the Columns and Rows settings area. You can also delete unneeded rows and columns. Here we have added 3 rows and 3 columns. By clicking on individual rows or columns, you can modify their individual sizing, which can be default or maximum or minimum. Under the default setting, you can also modify the units and size of sizing. The grid layout introduces an extra length unit to help us define a grid, the FR unit. The FR unit represents a fraction of the available space in the grid container. You use it to define the length of rows and columns just like a percentage or pixel unit. But, unlike fixed percentages or pixel units, the FR unit automatically calculates cell space while adjusting for gaps. Here, we set FR units for columns and PX units for rows. By clicking on the plus Add button next to areas, we can set up separate areas in the grid. We set up an area 1 that occupies columns 1 to 3 and the first row. Then add a title. You can set the area occupied by the title to this area 1. You can change the direction of the grid children by updating the direction settings in the Content panel. For example, we add another title on the next row and copy it. This copied title appears in the column next to the original title. Then we change the direction to column. This copied title appears in the row next to the original one. The caption and collapse can also be displayed and turned off. In the Style tab, the gaps of columns and rows can be set. You can also align and justify items. Next, we delete the titles used in these presentations and drag the content into the grid. When the content is not in the grid, its Advanced tab is normal. When it is dragged into the grid child appears in his Advanced tab. We drag this text editor into the grid and modify its position, column span and row span in the grid child. Finally, the rest of the content is also dragged into the grid and previewed. Grid is also widely used for forms. Next, we use grid to demonstrate the layout of a form. Drag the grid under the title. Type the caption title. Add 4 columns and 4 rows. Then drag all the contents into the grid and set their own grid child. Go to the Layout under the Style tab, set the columns gap, content padding and background color. Then click Caption, set the padding, border type, border width and color. Now you can see that the form is set up. We can switch to see its state in tablet and mobile mode. There are some incompatibilities in mobile mode. We need to modify it, delete the columns and modify the grid child. Now that it's all set up, we can preview. That's all for today's tutorial. With the grid, you can reposition and resize items anywhere within the grid to produce powerful, responsive layouts. We hope today's lesson will help you. For more tutorial videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.